tap rule for busducts allows tapping if the tap doesn't exceed 1/3 of the busduct's ampacity. With a 2500 amp busduct, the maximum tap is 833.33 amps, calculated by dividing 2500 by 3. Because the intended tap is for a 600 amp gear, and you have identified that it exceeds the allowable tap ampacity according to your calculation, a standard tap box connection isn't permissible in this situation. Therefore, the initial assessment is correct, the 600 amp requirement exceeding the tap rule. Alternatives need considering. Firstly, a new busplug installation directly to the busduct could be an option. This, however, seems unfeasible given the limited space. Secondly, explore if a different type of tap box rated for a higher ampacity exists. Perhaps a custom-engineered solution or specialized equipment rated at 833.33 amps or greater would be suitable and compliant. Thirdly, analyze the load requirements of the 600 amp gear. Can the load be reduced or redistributed to comply with the tap rule if low amperage is required? Fourthly, assess the practicality of upgrading the busduct itself. This would likely be a very costly and disruptive solution. It might not be feasible, but it is important to evaluate it from all angles. Fifthly, investigate the possibility of using multiple smaller taps that collectively feed the 600 amp gear, while each individual tap adheres to the 833.33 amp limit. This approach necessitates careful design and adherence to code requirements regarding multiple taps. Sixthly, consider a power distribution unit, or PDU, upstream of the 600 amp gear. The PDU would connect to the busduct with a suitably rated connection, then provide the necessary output for the 600 amp gear. Seventhly, thoroughly review the applicable sections of the National Electrical Code, or NEC, specifically those pertaining to busducts and tap rules, such as NEC Section 368.1. This ensures full compliance with all code requirements. Eighthly, consult with a qualified electrical engineer. An engineer can provide expert guidance, perform necessary calculations, and design a safe and code-compliant solution. Ninthly, obtain approval from the local electrical inspector for any proposed solution before commencing work. This ensures that the installation meets all local requirements and is deemed safe. The inspector will likely have the final say on any design changes and can offer possible alternatives to the situation based on the conditions you are currently facing. Tenthly, consider the 150 kV amps transformer that will be connected to a 208 volts, 500 amp gear. Ensure that the conductors feeding this transformer are appropriately sized and protected in accordance with NEC Table 310.16 and other relevant sections. The primary protection of the transformer must comply with NEC Section 450.3. 11thly, the 480 volts, 600 amp gear should have proper overcurrent protection. The overcurrent protection for the 600 amp gear must comply with NEC Section 240.4 and other applicable sections. Review the gear's nameplate for specific instructions. 12thly, ensure that all equipment used in the installation is properly listed and labeled by recognized testing laboratory, such as Underwriters Laboratories, OIL. 13thly, make sure that all connections are properly torqued and inspected. Loose connections can cause overheating and create a fire hazard. 14thly, verify that the busduct is properly supported and grounded in accordance with NEC requirements. 15thly, consider the ambient temperature and derating factors when sizing conductors and equipment. High ambient temperatures can reduce the ampacity of conductors and equipment. 16thly, check for any existing loads in the busduct and their impact on the available capacity. Ensure that the busduct has sufficient capacity to handle the additional load of the 600 amp gear. 17thly, ensure that the voltage drop from the busduct to the 600 amp gear is within acceptable limits. Excessive voltage drop can cause equipment to malfunction. 18thly, provide adequate working space around all electrical equipment. This is required by the NEC and ensures that electricians can safely work on the equipment. 19thly, use appropriate personal protective equipment, or PPE, when working on electrical equipment. This includes safety glasses, gloves, and arc-rated clothing. 20thly, ensure that all electrical work is performed by qualified and licensed electricians. This helps to ensure that the work is done safely and in accordance with the code. 21st, document all changes to the electrical system and keep accurate records. This is important for future maintenance and troubleshooting. 22nd, consider the future expansion of the electrical system. Ensure that the busduct and other equipment have sufficient capacity to handle future loads. 23rd, consult with the busduct manufacturer for specific recommendations on tapping and connecting equipment. The manufacturer may have specific guidelines or requirements. 24th, perform a load study to determine the actual load requirements of the 600 amp gear. This can help to optimize the design and ensure that the equipment is properly sized. 25th, consider the cost of each alternative solution. Compare the costs of different options and choose the most cost-effective solution that meets the requirement. 26th, evaluate the reliability of each alternative solution. Choose a solution that is reliable and will provide a long service life. 27th, assess the maintainability of each alternative solution. Choose a solution that is easy to maintain and repair. 28th, consider the environmental impact of each alternative solution. Choose a solution that is environmentally friendly and minimizes waste. 29th, ensure that all electrical panels and equipment are properly labeled and identified. This helps to prevent confusion and ensures that the correct equipment is energized for maintenance. 30th, use a calibrated torque wrench when tightening connections. This ensures that connections are properly tightened and prevents loose connections. 31st, inspect all electrical equipment regularly for signs of damage or wear. This helps to identify potential problems early and prevent failures. 32nd, provide regular training for electricians on safe work practices and code requirements. This helps to ensure that electricians are up to date on the latest standards and procedures. 33rd, develop an emergency response plan in case of an electrical accident. This plan should include procedures for shutting down equipment and contacting emergency services. 34th, implement a lockout/tagout program to prevent accidental energization of equipment during maintenance. This program should comply with OSHA requirements. 35th, use ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs, in areas where there is a risk of electric shock. GFCIs can help to prevent serious injuries or fatalities. 36th, ensure that all electrical equipment is properly grounded to provide a safe path for fault current. Grounding helps to prevent electric shock and minimize damage to equipment. 37th, use surge protection devices, or SPDs, to protect sensitive electronic equipment from voltage surges. SPD can help to prevent equipment damage and data loss. 38th, consider using energy-efficient electrical equipment to reduce energy consumption and lower operating costs. Energy-efficient equipment can save money and reduce the environmental impact. 39th, perform regular thermographic inspections of electrical equipment to identify hotspots and potential problems. Thermographic inspections can help to prevent equipment failures and fires. 40th, use arc flash protection devices to minimize the risk of injury from arc flash events. Arc flash protection devices can help to reduce the severity of arc flash injuries. 41st, ensure that all electrical equipment is properly ventilated to prevent overheating. Overheating can damage equipment and create a fire hazard. 42nd, consider using remote monitoring systems to track the performance of electrical equipment. Remote monitoring systems can provide early warnings of potential problems and allow for proactive maintenance. 43rd, use a power quality analyzer to monitor the voltage, current, and other electrical parameters of the system. A power quality analyzer can help to identify power quality problems and improve the performance of the electrical system. 44th, consider using an uninterruptible power supply, or UPS, to provide backup power in case of a power outage. A UPS can help to keep critical equipment running during a power outage. 45th, review and update the electrical system drawings regularly to reflect any changes or modifications. Accurate electrical drawings are essential for maintenance and troubleshooting. 46. Consider using a building automation system, or BAS, to control and monitor the electrical system. A BAS can help to optimize energy consumption and improve the performance of the electrical system. 47. Perform a short circuit study to determine the available fault current at various points in the electrical system. A short circuit study is essential for selecting the appropriate overcurrent protection devices. 48. Coordinate the overcurrent protection devices to ensure that they operate properly in the event of a fault. Proper coordination of overcurrent protection devices can minimize the extent of an outage. 49. Consider using harmonic filters to reduce harmonic distortion in the electrical system. Harmonic distortion can cause equipment to overheat and malfunction. 50th. Consider using power factor correction capacitors to improve the power factor of the electrical system. Improving the power factor can reduce energy consumption and lower operating costs. Carefully evaluating these options and consulting with experts are key to finding a code-compliant solution.